10 Facts About Jesus. Some people believe that Jesus Christ was just a man or a brilliant teacher. He was, however, so much more. According to the Bible, Jesus is one of a kind in both his person and his mission. He wasn't just a spiritual person. During his time on earth, he was both God's Son and God himself. God in human flesh. Number 1. Jesus' closest friend, John. John is the name of the man who was Jesus' friend before hearing Jesus' call to follow him. John had a successful career as a fisherman. He worked in the fishing industry at both the wholesale and retail levels. We know he had contacts in Jerusalem, which most likely included a retail business selling the fish he had caught in Galilee. As a result, he existed in two worlds, the rural north and the urban city of Jerusalem in the south. As such, he stood out from the majority of the apostles who were all northerners, with Judas Iscariot being the only native southerner. He was Jesus' cousin and brother of one of the other disciples, James. This closeness was evident at the cross when Jesus asked John to look after his mother. John, however, was not just close to Jesus because he was a cousin. He was also part of an inner circle, along with James and Peter, of those who were particularly close to Jesus. He refers to himself as the disciple who Jesus loved, intending to deflect attention from himself by not actually giving his name, but supplying us with the insight that, of all the 12, John was nearest to Jesus. John was the disciple who sat next to Jesus at the Last Supper as the two of them reclined to finish their meal. This occurred during the Passover feast. Jesus wanted his close buddy to be there with him as they experienced this life-changing moment together. Not only was John the disciple who was closest to Jesus, but he was also the last of the original apostles to live. He composed his gospel as an older man, reflecting on the life of Jesus with his own particular wisdom. Number 2. Jesus never wrote any of the books in the Bible. Jesus never wrote a book, not even the Gospels. Aside from his life story, more than 1/3 of the pages in the Gospels are devoted to Jesus' death. Many Old Testament prophecies are about Christ, and the book of Revelation is a revelation about Jesus Christ. It was, however, written by John of Patmos, also known as John the Revelator, John the Divine, and John the Theologian. However, this does not imply that he was unable to read or write. Jesus possessed the ability to read and write. The New Testament demonstrates these abilities. In a Nazareth synagogue, he opened a scroll of the prophet Isaiah and read from a portion of it. In the story of the woman caught in adultery, Jesus is seen writing on the ground. All that we can know for sure is that Jesus could have written letters or books if he so wished. Why he did not leave anything for us in writing, whether it be a systematic arrangement of his teachings or his inner thoughts, we simply do not know. Number 3. His family members were among his 12 disciples. Indeed, at least 5 and probably 7 of the 12 were Jesus' relatives. However, his brothers remained skeptical until after the resurrection, when James and Jude not only became believers, but penned 2 of the books of the New Testament. Thank you. Number 4. Jesus gets his name from an angel. And coming to her, the angel said, "Greetings, favored one. The Lord is with you." But she was greatly perplexed at what he said and kept carefully considering what kind of greeting this was. The angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. Listen carefully. You will conceive in your womb and give birth to a son, and you shall name him Jesus." Luke 1. Number 5. We don't know how many Magi visited Jesus. We're used to seeing 3 wise men accompanying Christmas nativity scenes. This is most likely due to the fact that they brought 3 gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The Holy Scriptures make no mention of the number of Magi who traveled from the east to pay their respects to the newborn king. Number 6. Jesus had several half-siblings. The Gospels tell us that Jesus had brothers, Matthew 12:46, Amplified Bible. While he was still talking to the crowds, it happened that his mother and brothers stood outside asking to speak to him. Matthew even names his brothers and mentions his sisters. Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary, and aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Aren't all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all these things? Matthew 13:55-56. Number 7. Bethlehem means house of bread. Bethlehem is the name of the town that is mentioned in the Bible as being the place where Jesus was born. This is expressed with two words in Hebrew. It is difficult to miss the importance of the names Beth and Lam, which both mean home and bread respectively. Not only did the prophet Micah foretell that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, but Jesus repeatedly referred to himself as the bread of life. Micah foretold that the Messiah would be born there, John 6:35, Amplified Bible. Jesus replied to them, "I am the bread of life. The one who comes to me will never be hungry, and the one who believes in me as Savior will never be thirsty, for that one will be sustained spiritually." Number 8. Luke gives us our only view of Jesus in his adolescence. In the return caravan from Passover in Jerusalem, Joseph and Mary became separated from Jesus. When they figured out Jesus was missing, they both rushed back to the ancient city in a panic. They didn't find him for 3 days. Luke 2:46. And when they finally discovered him, he wasn't frightened or upset in the way that an average youngster would be in this situation. The things they found out were incredible. 3 days later, they found him in the court of the temple, sitting among the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. All who heard him were amazed by his intelligence and his understanding and his answers. When they saw him, they were overwhelmed, and his mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Listen, your father and I have been greatly distressed and anxious looking for you." And he answered, "Why did you have to look for me? Did you not know that I had been in my father's house?" Luke 2:46-49, Amplified Bible. Number 9. Jesus grew up as a carpenter. Joseph was known as a carpenter. Jesus must have learned the trade because he's identified by the crowd in his hometown as a carpenter too. Mark 6:3, Amplified Bible. Is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? Are his sisters not here with us? And they were deeply offended by him. And their disapproval blinded them to the fact that he was anointed by God as the Messiah. The Gospel also mentions carpentry in Matthew 13:54-55, saying, "Coming to his hometown, he began teaching the people in their synagogue, and they were amazed. 'Where did this man get his wisdom and these miraculous powers?' they asked. 'Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary, and aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas?'" The word translated as carpenter in both cases could also mean builder or laborer, so it stands to reason that carpenters were the people you call when you needed something fixed or built, similar to a modern-day handyman. Number 10. Jesus was likely very ordinary looking. We don't have a lot of information about Jesus' physical appearance, but Isaiah prophesied about it, Isaiah 53:2. For he grew up before him as a tender plant and as a root out of dry ground. He had no form nor comeliness, and when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. When Judas betrayed Jesus, it is also well known that he was required to kiss Jesus in order to assist the authorities in identifying him, Matthew 26:48. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, "Whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he. Hold him fast." In point of truth, following his resurrection from the tomb, Mary Magdalene mistook him for the gardener. At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." One thing is obvious. If it were essential for us to know he really did look like Matthew, Peter, and John, who spent 3 years with him, would certainly be able to give us an accurate description, as would his own brothers, James and Jude. Yet these New Testament authors offer no details about his physical attributes.